the book of, Ken Johnson's Book of Gad the Seer, the ancient book of Gad the Seer. We're going to be reading from chapter 4. David the wise judge. Right?
Alright.
In those days, a man from Bethlehem, the city of David, went to Jerusalem to pay the vow which he had vowed unto the Lord. His name was Zabad the Parhai, and he was of the family of the Perizzites. Zabad's father was very sick unto the point of death. So Zabad vowed, when the Lord heals my father of sickness, I will weigh out 2 talents of silver and give them to the house of the Lord into the hand of King David. And it came to pass, when he was at the house of the shepherds along the way, he lost the pouch with the money in it, and he was upset. He came to the city of Jerusalem, into the inner city, and he wrote on all the gates these words. Anyone who finds a lost pouch with 2 talents of silver and brings it to me, I will give him a talent of silver as a reward. After a while, a man from the tribe of Dan came and had in his hand the pouch with the silver talents that he found along the way, and he gave it to the owner of the pouch. And the Danite said to Zabad, give me the talent of silver as you promised. And Zabad said, no, there were actually 3 talents in my pouch, and you have already stolen 1 talent. I mistakenly wrote down the wrong number. So both of them came and stood before the king, and the king said to the Zabad, swear unto me by the Lord that you truly had 3 talents of silver in your pouch. And Zabad swore to him by the Lord, and the king continued saying to the Danite, swear unto me by the Lord that you only found 2 talents of silver in the pouch. He swore to him by the Lord. And David said to Zabad, give the pouch with the talents back to the Danite, because this is his money that the Lord has given to him by chance. Now go and write on the city gates, whoever finds the pouch of 3 talents should bring it to me, because this is not your pouch. And David took the pouch with the talents of silver from the hand of the Zabad and gave it to the Danite. And the Danite bowed his head and prostrated himself to the earth and said, long live my Lord King David forever. And all Israel heard of this judgment, and they marveled over David and were overjoyed, because they saw that he was full of the wisdom of God. The rest of that chapter is a Ken Johnson commentary. I will spare you that. But did you notice, can you tell us what the story was about? Did you catch it?
I think so. So pretty much what ended up happening is he wrote on a board, hey, I lost my pouch. And someone found it, was actually being honest, but he accused them otherwise of stealing from him, but it seemed like trying to get more money, though.
Yeah, like, whoops, Noel, I mistakenly wrote that there were 2. There actually were 3. You must have already taken 1.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that was Ken Johnson's Book of Gad the Seer. I don't know where it says the date in this book. I didn't just now look.
Normally on the front couple pages.
If not, you can look it online and see that it was published October 27th of 2016. You can check that online and verify that it wasn't published until 2016. Now, we are aware that it was taken from another Gad in the Hebrew translation, but if you do the research on that Gad, it wasn't published till 2015. This children's book called Solomon and the Ant and Other Jewish Folk Tales was published in 2006. Barcode in case you want to get it. Or that's not the barcode, that's the where it's at on the shelf. The barcode would be in here, and it would be oh, by the way, that's in the children's section where you would find it in your public library. That's where I got this one. ISBN is 1-59078-307-7. Right there. Right? It's a children's book. And there's a story called The Rich Man's Reward on page 93. Remember, the name of this book is called Solomon and the Ant, if you want to verify what I'm about to read to you and see it for yourself. The Rich Man's Reward. Here it goes. A girl named Esther was coming into town at harvest time. It was a busy time of the year, and crowds of people were heading to the marketplace to buy and sell. Esther noticed a small leather bag. He's all right. He's cool.
Yeah.
On the ground. It was a plain leather bag, the kind that many people carried. When she looked inside, she found 100 gold coins. She stared hard at the coins and shut the bag. She wanted to hide it under her jacket and run home. She thought of everything she could buy with so much money. Then she thought, no, wait, this is not mine. Someone lost it. I have to return it to its owner. It was not difficult to find out who had lost it. Barak, the richest man in town, was standing outside his store telling everybody, I've lost a bag of gold. I'll give half the money to whoever brings it back. Half the money. Everyone was rushing about looking for the bag. The whole town was in an uproar. I found your money, said Esther. At first, Barak did not hear the girl. He was too busy talking to adults. Finally, Esther held up the bag in front of Barak's face and shouted, here's your money. And when Barak saw the bag, he grabbed it out of Esther's hand. Everyone else congratulated Esther for being so honest. You'll get half the money as a reward, they said. Isn't that true, Barak? Barak said nothing. He just held the bag tightly. Count the money, Barak, they said. Barak counted out the coins very slowly as everybody watched. But when he finished counting, he stared hard at the coins and he shut the bag. And he said, there's something wrong. There are only 100 coins in this bag. There should be 200. People whispered to each other, maybe Esther is not honest after all. Maybe she took half the money for herself and now she's trying to get even more. Esther blushed. She said, all the coins are there. I did not take a thing. First you steal and now you lie, said Barak. You can keep the 100 coins you took. That was going to be the reward, but you won't get any more from me. It's not true and it's not fair, said Esther. She wanted to run away, but now she had to stay to prove that she was not dishonest. Everyone was talking, but no one knew what to do until someone went to get Reb Kohen. Reb Kohen always knew what to do and how to do it. When Reb Kohen arrived, he asked, what is the problem? Barak shouted out, that girl is a thief and a liar. Reb Kohen asked the people, has the girl ever stolen or lied before? The people said, no, she's always been fine and decent. Then they thought about Barak, and they remembered things that he had done that were not at all fine or decent. Barak scowled and said, I lost a bag with 200 gold coins. Esther said, I found this bag, but it had only 100 coins. Barak turned to Reb Kohen and said angrily, you decide. Who are you going to call dishonest, me or that girl? Reb Kohen looked carefully at Barak and then at Esther. I don't need to call anyone anything, said Reb Kohen. Barak lost a bag with 200 coins. Esther found a bag with 100 coins. Obviously, the bag that Esther found is not Barak's. What? Barak sputtered. Reb Kohen ignored him and put his hand on Esther's shoulder. He said, you are a fine and decent person, Esther. Since no one claims to have lost a bag with 100 coins, it now belongs to you. He gave the bag to Esther, and everybody cheered because Esther got what she deserved, and so did Barak. Did you catch?
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same story, only just the names and the place is different.
Yeah, Reb Kohen would have been King David in the book of Gad the Seer, the ancient one, and then the two other characters. It's the exact same story.
Yeah.
It's a bag was found, and it had remember Solomon and the Ant and other Jewish folk tales. It's by Oberman is the author, Sheldon Oberman. So it was a bag found. By the way, the real books of Gad, you want the book of Nathan, or the books of Samuel the Seer, Nathan the Prophet, Gad the Seer. Tiber Slough is the author that you really want to get when you want the real books. When I say real, though, let me explain, and we're going to get more into this throughout the series, not in this video, but continue to watch part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so forth as we expand. Because one thing I'll point out, if you'll notice, the title of that Gad, the title of the chapter 4 we read in this Gad, in this Ken Johnson Gad, it was called David the wise judge. You'll notice David has to be flattered. King David has to be flattered before he'll. Well, what I'm saying is, in the real book of Gad the Seer, this one actually has Samuel, Nathan, and Gad. It's all three books referred to in. So it has. But when we look in the real book of Gad, regarding the only way to how should I say this? Gad told Nathan, the prophet, Gad the seer told Nathan that, because remember, Nathan the prophet was a prophet. Gad the seer was a seer. They both had messages to share with King David. And so Gad asked Nathan, how can I get, David doesn't seem to be listening to the message. How can I get him to actually listen and understand? If you remember in the Bible, when Nathan went to King David, he had to speak a parable. He says there was a traveler coming through, and the rich man owned many sheep, and the poor man had one lamb, and the rich man went and killed the poor man's lamb and had a feast for the traveler rather than take from one of the many that he had. This was a parable in the Bible, in Scripture, and so what was the purpose of this? Because David wouldn't have heard him otherwise. See, King David is one of those people that if you're not telling him what he wants to hear, he's not going to listen, right?
Yeah.
So Gad the seer asked Nathan in the real book of Gad, and the one by this author, okay. Nathan told Gad the only way to get that David will listen is if you flatter him, or of course if you paid him. But flattering him is the only way to get him to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, in Nathan's case, he had to tell a parable. He had to make David think that the story was about someone else, about the rich man and the traveler. And then after David listened and grasped the story, and he said, let's go kill that man. Nathan said, thou art the man. He said, you are the man. So he had to go through all that to get David to listen. And so that's what, so the point is that, but you'll see more of that in Gad. Here's an example. And David perceived that Gad the seer was speaking of David in a good way. So David said, say on, Gad the seer, what messages of hope do you see for the light of Israel? And Gad the seer prophesied and so forth. So what's the point here is that only if David perceives that Gad is speaking in a good way will he listen. There's more scripture to really bring that into a greater perspective, but I'm not going to use this video for that. What we're bringing out in this video is showing you that the ancient book of Gad, this one here. When I say ancient, I'm not talking about the real one. I'm talking about this one, this Ken Johnson one. The only way that what I'm saying about it is, first of all, we want to understand that this is a forgery or plagiarism of a children's book. It's a copy of the same story of a children's book that was published in 2006. But it should be understood that even that is a parable. Nathanic prophets speak in parables. Now the parable is this. This is the elementary book. It's elementary. I'm talking kindergarten, children's book. That's really what this is. So I'm not saying it's a fake. Most people are not ready for the real book of Gad, for the real one. And this is only one, because this one actually has the 3 books in one. But there are other variations that have more books or less books depending. But you just want to go to this author's, just get on this author page, right? And then you're good, you're there, and you can then let God lead you to to the correct book for you at the time. But most people are not ready for that. This book is for children's. It's for people that are not mature and have not evolved, have not grown in spirit. They're still children as far as the things of God. They're not of maturity. So when we say the real book, what I mean is there are two books of Gad. There's that one, and then there's the one it's a higher level. This one begins in the first chapter speaking about three animals: the camel, and the lamb, and a donkey. This is, I think, supposed to be the lamb, but it's really they worship King David. But that's a different topic for a different time. The camel, the lamb, and the donkey, chapter 1. But in the real book of Gad, chapter 13, the last chapter of Gad, it mentions three animals also, but they're not of the earth. They're not earthbound. They're the dove, the crow, and the pigeon, the higher type of thoughts. So one is the earthly for people that are not spiritually mature, spiritually grown, that are kind of not ready for it. The Christ speaks in the scriptures in Luke about when you're not ready. He said, what good would it do to give your child that asks for you an egg or bread or something? Would you give him a stone or a serpent? If you then, well, the point of that being, Christ leads us to give people what they're ready for. The Christ wants us to only give people what they're ready for and not give them more than they're ready. And so some people aren't ready for the real Gad, and they're going to want the children's version. And that's what the Ken Johnson version, it's a children's book. It's for people that are not, what's the word? Not
Mature?
Mature. I've been saying it all day. So basically mature, people that are just not ready. So if you're somebody that's not ready, then you want to get the Ken Johnson book if you're just on that lower level of thinking, that elementary, the children's book. But the real book of Gad that God has provided, right, is translated into over 90 languages. It's everywhere. It's the real book of, when I say real, again, okay, what do I mean by real? Okay, here's the question, and I'll try to conclude with this question, all right? Why am I saying something on a higher level? So there's two books, both are real. But one is for children, and one is for masterminds, for those that are evolving and expanding inwardly, right? Evolving. Now, the reason one is real and we say the others, we refer to it as not real, like the Ken Johnson one, we sometimes can say it's not real, is because everything of the earth, everything that's earthly, is temporary. It's not real because it's not eternal. Things of the spirit last eternally. So those we can say they're real because they won't change. They will endure. So it's not that one is fake and one is real. The fake one is for some people because they're not ready for the real. If I speak Chinese and you only speak English, right? Okay? Then if I come to you speaking Chinese, you're not going to understand me, right?
No, of course not.
So I need to speak a dialect that you can understand, right?
Yeah.
And if all you really understand is the language you speak, the only thing you can interpret and understand is lies. You're kind of stuck there in falsehoods, right? Then I'm going to have to bring some of them falsehoods to be able to reach you. Some of them lies I'm going to have to entertain you with to try to get you out of the, all right?
Yeah.
So therefore we have the temporary or childish elementary version of Gad, written by Gad. But for people that can't handle what God really wants to tell them and show them. He says they're not ready. So he speaks in a language they can comprehend. It still gets their mind a little bit further than where it is, because their minds can't comprehend anything more than 66 books in the Bible. They don't think that God can speak elsewhere. So if they could open their mind and even receive the Ken Johnson's Gad, that's something, because now they think that God might speak beyond their 66 books. But it's really nothing, but it is something for them, because it can bring them a little higher. But those of you that are already of a higher mind, that are already past that, there's no need for the Ken Johnson. You can get the Tiber Sloth book. The Tiber Sloth book of Gad the Seer, that's the one that how do you refer to that book? I know you've studied it yourself.
I mean, I definitely would go for that, because, it brings certain lights onto the Bible subject that, you won't find anywhere else.
Okay.
And it tends to add up a lot more sense than, when you go to church.
Now, hey, Bongo, come here, come here, come here, come. Yeah. Now look, let's end it with this right here. Check this out. Yeah. These, by the way, those who don't know, these are edible. You can eat these dandelions.
They're super good in tea.
Yes, I drink dandelion tea every day. They're nutritional and medicinal.
Pluckable too.
Yeah.
They're right there on the ground.
Peace. And oh wait. We're still on, right?
Yeah.
I gotta explain one more thing.
All right.
So we're doing a series. This is the first episode of this series. I'm gonna try to keep this knocking out, episodes as we go, right? I think we'll call it the Chronicles of Nathan the Prophet and Gad the Seer, IES, right? IES, IES, Intelligent Entertaining Studies, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is part 1 only, and then sometimes part 2 and some of the other parts, we might not be addressing Gad directly on that episode, because we also need to lay a foundation in Scripture to get people ready for the Gad that we're going to be bringing out. So even though the title is Gad, those other episodes, some of them, every other one and so forth, they might not have directly be coming from the book of Gad, and that topic might come from the Bible, from something or whatever, because we want to lay a foundation. But stay tuned and keep watching and growing, and hopefully everybody sees this first one so they understand that, because I'm surely not going to say this on every video. So hope you caught that. The Chronicles of well, you already know. By the time you see this, I'm going to have that laid out for you. Chronicles of Nathan the Prophet and Gad the Seer, IES.